Good morning, everybody. I am here to tell you about dinosaur bone crafting, something that I've talked about a lot in videos and also on my live stream, and I've said it's basically one of the best crafting systems in the game, and it's one of the best things you can get, but some people might not know much about it. So here's what you need to know about dinosaur bone crafting as quickly as I can get it to you. So first, dinosaur bone crafting is an Isle of Dread exclusive mechanic and an endgame exclusive mechanic. It is only level 31 and up to use it. All the items are level 31, so if you're like level 10, you don't have to worry about it for now. It's something you get there later. Also, if you don't own Isle of Dread, you might want to buy Isle of Dread because this is a very, very good system. So what exactly is it? Basically, in Isle of Dread, you will find items that will have a augment slot for a dinosaur bone thing. This is a ring with a claw slot. This means you can put an additional stat on your item because it's got this slot, and you can choose what it is. Sort of like how in Sharn, there were items you could craft extra stats onto them. It's like here, but it's even more flexible with even more statistics, which is one of the reasons why this set is very, very powerful in the game. So, you have items that have an extra slot, like this ring. You also have artifacts, which are fully craftable, weapons, which are fully craftable, and also armor, pieces, and other things that come directly from the raid. So, number one, how do you get started? What do you do? Well, first, you need the dinosaur bones themselves, the vertebrae, the horns, the claws, and the ribs. You gotta have all of these items to be able to do any crafting, as well as Tyrannosaurus teeth. The bones come from any chest in Isle of Dread. So if you loot any chest whatsoever, an optional chest, a end chest where you get named items, a chest in the adventure zone when you're killing rares, all of those chests will drop these bones. So you pretty much want to loot every single chest. It's why when you do Isle of Dread, even on the hardest difficulty like an R10 run, people will stop and do optionals, because you can never have enough of these materials. Additionally, you can also get the materials by handing in the saga. So when you run all of the quests and talk to the person at the end, on any difficulty, even on normal, they will still give you a selection of the materials, so you can choose an extra 25 of them, which is a good way to kind of keep yourself up. Additionally, these are unbound. So if you're bored, feel free to farm out some Isle of Dread materials, and you can go ahead and hit up the Astral Shard auction house and sell them. I'm sure there's lots of people selling these things, so you can probably sell them to people that don't want to farm them out if you're bored. Make some astral shards. I don't know if anybody's buying them, but I just know you can. And then finally, we have the Tyrannosaurus teeth. These ones are unique. They only come from the rares. So you'll have to run around and farm the rares in a circle. If you want a rare chart, there will be a link in the description of this video to the Dino wiki, where you'll have a map you could look at, kind of make a path to find these rares and to get this. Now, how exactly do you get... Oh, and the last ingredient is the black pearls. These are for crafting horns specifically, so if you want to craft any horns on there, you need to get black pearls. They come from the ultra rares. So these are like raid bosses that show up in the actual Isle of Dread Adventure Zone. There's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Glabrazu, and a dragon. The dragon and the T-Rex are not there every time, so you might not always find them, but the Glabrazu is always there, so it's pretty easy to farm out. You just have to pick up these crests and put them in a socket, and it summons the Glabrazu, so he is always there. Additionally, whenever you loot one of these raid bosses, you get a weapon every single time. So if you're looking for the weapons, you can either craft them using some of these materials. It's relatively inexpensive, and you can do it at this crafting vendor right here. Or you can just run the monsters in the wilderness and hope you get the one you need. And then finally, we have the attuned weapons. Attuned weapons are the same thing as the regular weapons you get from, like I said, from crafting them, except these come from the raid. So they have more damage because they're raid weapons, and then also they have the Isle of Dread curse set on them, whereas the regular weapons don't have that. Now, when it comes to killing the rares in the landscape, just to let you know, the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the dragon will probably kill you. They are extremely dangerous. They're like CR 60 or something, and they're insanely high damage. If you're not prepared, feel free to go hunt them down and lose. You want to bring some friends, bring some buddies. Don't try to do it by yourself, and especially on hardcore, don't try to do it by yourself if you're not prepared. It is very, very dangerous, so just keep that in mind. So, how do you do it? I've got my materials, I've got my items. So what you're going to do is you can come over to Sharpened Bone for the Dinosaur Bone Crafting, and you can see the whole list here. At the back, you can see all the different weapons you want to make. So let's just say you're playing as a longsword character. You can, of course, just craft one of these longswords with 25 of each ingredient, and then boom, you've got yourself a longsword, and then you can start crafting the augments you need to put on top of it. The scale, the fang, the claw, and the horn. Now, the actual augments themselves, that was not what I wanted to do. Anyway, the actual augments themselves are sorted, so this is a scale weapon, which means this scale can only go into a weapon. Then you will have So if I go scale here, so this scale can only go into a weapon. But if I scroll down, this scale can only go into an accessory. So the items are broken down based on what slot they go into. Obviously, accessories, so like rings and gloves and what have you, have accessory slots. Weapons have weapon slots. Armor pieces, which are raid exclusive, have armor and accessory slots. And shields, also raid exclusive, have armor and weapon slots. So just keep that in mind. Now, I want to go over what the actual effects are. So we're going to do that here on the wiki. I find that the wiki is the easiest way to do it. It also breaks down what's on what. So you can kind of see here how like armors have armor and accessory. Shields have weapon and armor slots. Accessories have accessory slots. Weapons have weapon slots. And the artifacts have all accessory slots. So again, it makes it kind of easy to understand there. So we're going to take a look, basically break down what the effects are. So we're going to start with weapons. Then we're going to do armors or accessories. And then we'll do armor last. And kind of break down what each set does and which ones you should or shouldn't use. So to get started here, we have the scales. The scales are the first weapon effect. They give you a damage type, so adamantine, cold iron, crystal, silver. So you can pick whichever one you don't have. This extra amount of damage is really, it's a negligible amount, and you also get it on all of them. So realistically, you want to go for the material type. So generally, if you have an adamantine bypass or a cold iron bypass, something like that, you can go for crystal or silver. My recommendation, in order of importance, you need adamantine, so if you don't have that somewhere else, get adamantine. Then I would go silver, then cold iron, and last crystal and bieshk. These ones are the most niche, whereas adamantine comes up literally everywhere. There's just golems and all sorts of monsters you need to deal with all over the game. Then if you're a spellcaster, you've got spell penetration as an option, spell cost reduction, or bonus to all enhancement type of equipment spell power. So that is absolutely an option. You also have, I guess it's the claws down here, so we'll get to the claws later. If it's a quarterstaff, you can get exceptional spell DCs as well. I don't recommend you use a quarterstaff for your dinosaur bone crafting weapon. It's almost always better to just make 2 separate dinosaur bone weapons, but you can if you want. But I really generally wouldn't recommend this. They're very specific quarterstaff builds. They involve not only using the exceptional DCs here, but then also specifically getting out of Draconic Incarnation. There's an effect that gives you more spell power while using a quarterstaff, and lots of class effects that give you more spell power while using a quarterstaff. Those are the only situations I can imagine you would use a quarterstaff. But outside of that, I wouldn't recommend it. Next, we have the fangs. Now, all the fangs are not created equal. This is the second slot on a weapon. Bright, flame, ice, iridescent, melt, shadow, and spark. In my opinion, there is one that is better in pretty much all cases, and then everything else falls behind that, and that is the Melt Fang. Ignore this evil alignment bypass. What it says is, your attacks and spells deal a large amount of stacking acid damage over time. It means that when you hit a monster, you get 1 stack, then you hit another monster, they get 2 stacks, you hit another monster, you get 3 stacks. Each stack is like the full amount of damage you would deal. So it's like, you hit him for 100, then the next hit, you have 2 stacks now, so you hit him for 200. The next hit, you hit him for 3 stacks now, so you have 300. And it goes up really quickly. Very quickly, you go to doing 500 to 1,000 damage with this. Super, super strong. It's the best one. Pretty much no exceptions. The rest of them all fall in various levels of usefulness. Iridescent Fang, I think, is just pretty much strictly bad unless using a quarterstaff for the exceptional bonus, because while you can get equipment bonus to all spell DCs, there are new augments that give you spell DCs in Isle of Dread, so you don't really need to worry about that. They're very easy to come by, and they're +6, so they're actually better than this, so I wouldn't really get the Iridescent Fang here. Bright Fang gives untyped damage. This is Legendary Steam from Legendary, Legendary Greensteel. This is not great. The damage is very small. It's a very minimal amount of damage. It's consistent, but it's very minimal. Not nearly as good as Melt Fang. Flame Fang. This is Fire Attunement and does not stack with Fire Attunement. So if you have a weapon that says Fire Attunement on it, this is the same effect and will not stack with it. It's the shared cooldown. Same thing with Spark Fang. This is Air Attunement. Same thing. It basically means your attacks have a chance to hit for like 500 to 1,000 damage somewhere in there, and you go like boom, and they explode, which seems kind of fun. But remember, Melt Fang does almost that much damage after 3 hits, and it always does that damage. So if you're fighting a big boss, you just keep getting those hits over and over and over. So would definitely recommend the Melt Fang over those 2. Then you have Ice Fang. This applies a stacking debuff of cold damage. Important note, this is the same thing as Cold Attunement, which means it overwrites on Cold Concentration from Alchemist, so it overwrites that spell. It overwrites Nyax Biting Cold, and it overwrites Creeping Cold. So this pretty much just takes away any cold dots that your character has and replaces them with this. So a reason why I generally recommend to avoid it in all cases, even if you think about using it on a cold character. And then finally, Shadow Fang. There's this curse thing. It is bad. This curse is very bad. It also is really wonky. If 2 people have the curse, so if 2 people have Shadowfang, it doesn't work because it can only apply 1 at a time, and so the durations will disappear, and then you can't even see what's happening, and then it only ticks for 1 person instead of both people. Also, it scales off of spell power, but only when you cast a spell, and if you attack with it, it doesn't scale off of spell power. So it's really, really weird. I can't recommend Shadowfang. Just ignore it. Get Meltfang and ignore the other ones for the most part. As far as the claws go, you could choose either to get extra spell power on your weapon, or you can get an extra stat. In almost all cases, you're picking the stat because these are the spell powers of an augment. So I could just take a regular, like, red augment and put it into my weapon here. So I've got my, my Morning Star. I've got a orange and a purple slot on it. So I could just put an augment in here for the spell power they want, and then I have the Spark Claw for the charisma, because that was more important to me in the moment. So grab your main stat is usually going to be the recommended here, although you could take the equipment bonus if you're really tight on augment slots and you don't have an augment. And then finally we have the horns. Horns are unique effects that are very, very powerful. If you've ever wondered why some people do crazy high amounts of damage, this is why. This is something that they have that you don't, and so kind of we're going to be breaking down the secret here. These effects were originally all present on legendary green steel weapons, which meant that you needed to do the raid multiple times, and you needed to have, so you need to get groups together, run the raid, understand the crafting system, because these were bonus crafting effects, so you need to make sure you made your weapon in specific ways. It was really complicated. Now, anybody can get these, because to get them, all you have to do is run around Isle of Dread and fight the monsters. No raiding necessary, which is nice. So, we've got I'm going to do the non-damage ones, and we'll look at the damage ones first. So, Brighthorn. This was previously called Legendary Affirmation. So, it's Affirmation here. When you hit monsters, you get temporary hit points. It's 1,000. This goes off all the time. It's incredibly powerful. If you just never want to die, throw on a Brighthorn into a weapon, and then whenever you do anything, it gives you temporary hit points. Affirmation is very fun to have. It makes you nearly invincible, so big fan of that. And then second, we have the Icehorn, where your attacks and offensive spells have a chance to freeze your target in a block of ice. Again, same thing. This goes off all the time. It's a DC 100 freeze, and it's very, very powerful effect. So if you need to just crowd control monsters, you're playing in like the Elite to Reaper 5 area, and you're mostly solo, this will just freeze everything in all your quests and be very, very nice. Not really adding any damage, but hey, who cares? You're just blowing everything up anyway, so it's not a big deal. And now we get to the big damage things. Flamehorn. This reduces your enemy's magical resistance rating. This will reduce it by 21, and which means you do 21% more damage with magic. This is way better than 21 spell power, because 21 spell power is an additive measure. So let's just say you have 600 spell power, which is pretty common, so I'll just take my character right here. I have light spell power, 682. If I add 21 to that, it goes just over 700. That new amount, that new number, is not 21% increased damage. Like it is 21% increased damage, but compared to the 682% increase I already have. So comparatively, it's like a 2% damage increase, something like that. It's really, really small. It's not nearly as big. But this reduces the magic resistance rating of the monster, increasing the damage they take by 21%. So that's a straight up 21% damage increase. So if I would do 1,000, I'm now doing 1,210. That is a huge amount of extra damage, and it's absolutely massive. If you're a spellcaster, you need Flamehorn somewhere. Either have a friend have it, or throw it on one of your weapons. Insanely good. It's the best damage thing you can get. What if you're a melee? I hit people with axes. That's where Melthorn comes in. It's the exact same thing, but for swords and shields and all that other stuff. It reduces physical resistance rating of monsters. This one is 35, however, so it increases the damage they take by 35%. Very, very, very strong. And then finally, we have Shadowhorn. This is both of them. However, it's only 10, and it doesn't stack, so it's only 10 total, which means if you have one person with a Shadowhorn, or say you're dual wielding on a spellcaster, you can have Shadowhorn and Flamehorn for minus 31 magic resistance rating, or minus 45 physical resistance rating, which is quite good. And then finally, we have Sparkhorn down here for stacks of vulnerability. Vulnerability stacking on weapons is also called vulnerability or fetters of unreality, which is what they've called it in the past. On top of that, several classes have abilities that can cause vulnerability stacking. So like as a warlock, as an example, I get the Soul Eater Stricken form, so where I blast somebody with Stricken, and then every time I damage them, they get vulnerability stacks, so they take 1% more damage. That doesn't really matter for the most part against regular monsters, but against bosses it's huge, because if I have vulnerability stacking, 20%, this for 10%, and then this for 35, that's 35, plus 10 is 45, plus 20 is 65% more damage taken. So when you watch those videos of people just ripping through raid bosses super quick, it's because they have all of these, and even more. You can actually get really crazy with some of the stacks here. Shadow Dancers can reduce physical magical resistance rating by 9. As a Soul Leader Warlock, I have Taint the Aura, which reduces it by another 10. So if you just have the right combination of monsters, or players, you can get monsters taking more than double damage from all sources, and a lot of it is thanks to the Dinosaur Bone crafting system here. So again, you know how to get it, you can go get it, no problem. Now let's talk accessories. So the accessories, each individual weapon that you get, or item that you get in Isle of Dread, is going to have, especially if it's an accessory, it'll have one slot on it. So some of those slots will be scales, some of them will be fangs, some of them will be claws. The horns are only for the artifacts, so this is artifact exclusive. So, scales. Main stat, it's going to give you 14. False life for hit points, or spell critical damage. Spell critical damage was previously a legendary Greensteel exclusive effect, and back in the day, you used to have, pretty much every character would have an item in their inventory that would give them all spell critical damage. I think I actually have one in my inventory. Let me see here. Legendary Greensteel. There it is. Like this one. So this is the water. So it gives me 20%, 10%, and 5% cold spell critical damage. And that's all this does, is 35% cold spell critical damage. Except that's the whole item. Nowadays, you can get the cold spell critical damage as a claw, and as a fang, and as a scale. And as a result, since you can get all of them, it means that you can wear 3 different Isle of Dread pieces, where like an Isle of Dread glove and an Isle of Dread ring and an Isle of Dread necklace, all of them that have useful stats that you need, and then you can craft the crit damage on there, which is very cool. Or, of course, the extra constitution or whatever your main stat is. Important note, in the artifact, all of these stats are higher. Artifacts are a higher item level. They're Caneth crafting level 35, so you can check that out by using the Caneth crafting level here. So if I go to Caneth crafting, you can just set the level to 35. Actually, you can't set it here. But it's basically Caneth crafting level 35 is the stats on the artifact, so any of them that you put in there would be higher. So you actually get more deadly and more accuracy than you even see here in an artifact. Fangs are more spell crit damage, as well as the amplifications and the melee stats, accuracy, deadly, deception, and seeker, making them quite good since they can be sometimes hard to fit into your build. Claws are quality spell crit damage, as well as spell penetration, all of your tactics, and physical and magical resistance rating. Not too bad. And then finally, you have the horns. Resistance plus saving throws. This is a augment. You can get a sapphire augment for this, so not the best choice. Enhanced Ghostly. This is one of the few places to get it. It's 15% incorporeality. Very, very good. Very unique. Relentless Fury increases your damage by 5% after you get a kill with any melee or ranged weapon. So this is specifically like a physical, a martial user, but it's one of the best damage effects in the game. Kind of useless for raiding, but really, really good for like R10s and higher content. Fortification bypass, again, sometimes hard to fit in, so it's not bad to have here. Spell points, again, another augment, so same as resistance. This is a topaz. Please don't put this on your artifact. Thank you. And then profane and sacred DCs. There are several items all over DDO that have profane DCs, and it's not hard to come by. There's the Pyre Fangs belt. There's the Dead Ringer gloves. You've got the Winter Court necklace. There's several artifacts that have profane DCs. Sacred DCs is the Gloryborn gloves, and I think that's basically it. There might be one other item. So if you're going to craft a artifact, please, on a spellcaster, get the Sacred DCs here, because you can't get them anywhere else. Next, we have the armor pieces. As I said, armors have 2 armor scales. So they have 2 scale effects, and then they have 2 armor effects, and then they take 2 accessories. Armors are raid exclusive as well. You can get Deathblock and Ghostly, Fortification, Amp, or Spell Lore. If you're a caster, obviously you're taking the Spell Lore. If you're not a caster, all of these effects just fit into whatever you need. And then finally, we have the Fang. Fang is very cool. If you're a caster, Spell Power is good, but also this may be where you get your Profane Spell DCs. Also, Profane, Tactical, and Assassinate DCs are nowhere else in the game, so this is very useful, except on the actual Isle of Dread set. And then finally, you have Sneak Attack bonus, which is exclusive to... It used to be exclusive to Shadow Dragon Scale, and now it's actually here. So you can get it without needing to wear some old Shadow Dragon Scale from Fire and Thunder Peaks, which is very cool. Additionally, you can also craft the set bonuses on your armor pieces. The set bonuses only go into the armor pieces. This is raid exclusive. So you're not doing the raid, you're not doing any of this, but if you get a raid armor, you can then choose what your armor set is. So let's say you want to use the Dreadstalker set because you think it's cool, but the Dreadstalker set only has light armor that you get from the landscape, so when you're doing quests, you can go get the heavy armor from the raid, and then put the Dreadstalker set on the heavy armor and be a heavy armor Dreadstalker, if you wanted. And then finally, we have special raid augments. These ones were discovered from the optional ending. If you've done the raid, but you haven't done the optional ending, it's very cool. There's a whole separate boss and a whole secret mechanic that you have to figure out. It was figured out by several people, but it was Arcaniverse who really put all the pieces together and tried endlessly slamming his face against it with multiple people, doing the raid again and again until finally they got it. And it's very, very cool. So great shout out Arcaniverse, putting that all together. Literally couldn't have done it without him. And so you have these special unique weapons or effects. Aspect of Tar is the Shadow Horn, except it also summons Tar Oozes, which are extremely powerful. Black Sand's Desire is Legendary Salt for Legendary Greensteel. If you've never seen this in action, it's hilarious. It's literally like slowing everything down to a 0% speed. This is one of the most powerful effects in the game and is sought after by everybody. Then we have the 2 armor pieces. You have really good defense. This is great, alignment absorption, or really good offense. Again, super, super good, very rare and hard to come by. And then for the artifacts, you can get Dimensional Horn. Honestly, Dodge Bypass, very hard to come by and is a very good effect, so could be useful. Or the Unconsciousness Range, probably the worst one of the whole bunch. It's not bad, it's just not that great. But yeah, so that's it. That is Isle of Dread pieces. So, you know, covered over everything. You've got your ingredients. You get the ingredients by looting any chest. Dinosaur teeth come exclusively from the Adventure Zone. You can get the Black Pearls from the raid or from farming the extra hard bosses, and the Glabrazu, one of the hard bosses, is always there and is the easiest one, so you can just farm that out yourself if you want to do it. All the Isle of Dread pieces come with gear that have slots on them, like a claw slot or whatever it is. Artifacts of all the slots, and you can craft your own weapons with all the slots. And of course, there are raid items as well, the raid armor pieces. There's also raid helmet and cloak that are fully craftable, should that be something that you want. But that's all you need to know. Isle of Dread crafting, you're all set to get started, and I'll even give you the example of my weapon here, because the reason why Isle of Dread crafting, maybe I didn't touch on this, why it's so good, why you don't just use Legendary Greensteel. Legendary Greensteel can't be made into a sentient weapon, whereas Isle of Dread crafting can be. So if you wanted to use Legendary Greensteel, you'd have to have this, like, basically bad weapon you're carrying around that does low damage and doesn't really add a lot to your character, whereas this item is now sentient, so as a warlock, I have, like, all my Curse Keeper filigrees and all sorts of other stuff. So I've got all these filigree sets in here that make my character powerful. And it's got the Melt Fang, the exceptional charisma, as well as the Flame Horn to reduce physical magical resistance rating. My character gets a lot of damage really, really, really quick. So would recommend, definitely check it out. Please make yourself some Isle of Dread Dinosaur Bone crafting stuff and have fun with it. It's a really easy system to engage with, and I spilled my coffee all over my keyboard, so I'm gonna go. Thank you for watching. Hope you had a fantastic time. Good luck getting your Isle of Dread gear, and have fun out there. Craft some Dino Bone stuff.